Zoe Harper tightened her grip on her reins as the wind swept through the narrow pass leading into Echo Valley. The stories called it a ghost town, abandoned after the old mine collapsed and drove its people away. But Zoe wasn't here for legends. She was here for her brother, Mason. He'd sent one desperate letter weeks ago, claiming he'd found something in Echo Valley, and then vanished. Her horse slowed as wooden storefronts emerged from the dust. Doors hung crookedly. Windows were shattered. The whole town sat in eerie silence, as if frozen in time. Didn't expect company. Zoe jerked toward the sound. Standing in the doorway of an old saloon was a tall man with dusty boots, a rifle resting casually against his arm. His shoulders were broad, his eyes sharp beneath the brim of his hat. He didn't look like a ghost, but he also didn't look like someone who wanted visitors. "My name's Zoe Harper," she said. "I'm looking for my brother." The man stepped forward. "Name's Clive Barrett, and you shouldn't be here." Zoe straightened her back. "I'm not leaving without answers." Clive sighed, glancing around the town as if the shadows themselves were listening. Echo Valley ain't what it seems. Folks think it's empty, but trouble passes through more often than it should. She noticed then that his rifle wasn't for decoration. Something or someone had made him stay armed. "Did you see him?" she asked. "My brother." Clive hesitated, just long enough to make her heart pound. "I saw a man heading toward the mines about a week back," he admitted. "Wasn't alone, though. Looked like he was being followed." Fear knotted in Zoe's stomach. Followed by who? Clive's jaw tightened. "You don't want those answers." "Well, I do," she said, fists clenched. "And you can either help me or stay out of my way." For a moment, he looked like he might send her right back the way she came. But then he exhaled sharply and tipped his hat. "Fine, you're not surviving Echo Valley alone. I'll help." Zoe met his eyes. "Thank you." But Clive's stare drifted past her, scanning the empty street. "Don't thank me yet," he murmured. "Someone else knows you're here." Clive lead Zoe through the crumbling streets of Echo Valley with the wary posture of a man who'd spent far too long in danger. Zoe noticed the way his eyes tracked every rooftop, every alley, every flicker of movement. This town wasn't deserted, not truly. "How long have you lived here?" she asked. "Long enough to know when something's wrong," he replied. "And right now, something's wrong." Zoe hugged her arms, feeling the weight of the silence pressing in. "Do you really think Mason was taken?" Clive didn't answer immediately. Instead, he stopped beside an old general store, crouched and brushed away dust from the ground. "Boot prints, fresh ones. These weren't here last night," he muttered. "Whoever made them is still close." Zoe knelt beside him. "Are they Masons?" "No," Clive stood, eyes narrowing. "These belong to men I've crossed paths with before. And they ain't the type to leave witnesses." Zoe swallowed hard. "Why would they be after my brother?" "Could be the mine," Clive said. "Rumors say there's still gold hidden down there. Men kill for less." Zoe's heart clenched. Mason wouldn't go after gold. He was researching the town for a newspaper. He was chasing stories, not treasure. Clive stepped closer, voice low. "Sometimes stories dig up things best left buried." A sudden clang echoed down the street. Zoe jumped, spinning around. Clive grabbed her wrist. "Stay behind me." They approached the sound cautiously. A metal bucket rolled across the dirt, pushed by the wind. But Zoe could feel eyes watching them. "You sure you want to keep going?" Clive asked. She lifted her chin. "If Mason's out there, yes." Clive studied her for a long moment, something softening in his gaze. "You're braver than most, or more stubborn." "Both," she said. He cracked a faint smile. "Figures." But the moment shattered when a rifle shot split the air. A bullet slammed into the wooden post beside Zoe's head. Chips flying. Clive yanked her behind cover. "Get down. Someone's shooting at us." Zoe gasped. "They know you're looking," Clive growled, "loading around, and they don't want you finding anything." Zoe's pulse raced as Clive peeked over the barrel of his rifle, searching for the shooter. The ghost town had come alive, shadows moving, dust shifting, Danger in every doorway. On my mark, Clive whispered. We run for the stables. Before Zoe could protest, he grabbed her hand and pulled her into a sprint. Another bullet cracked through the air, slicing past them as they ducked behind the stable wall. Zoe pressed against the wood, breath shaking. Who are those men? The kind that take whatever they want, Clive said. If Mason crossed them, he's in real trouble. Guilt stabbed her. He asked me not to worry about him. I should have come sooner. Clive met her gaze, his voice steady. You're here now. That's what matters. He pushed open the stable door. Inside, dust swirled around old saddles and broken lanterns. But something caught Zoe's Aja journal, lying half-buried in hay. That's Mason's handwriting, she whispered, grabbing it. Flipping through the pages, she found sketches of mine tunnels, notes about strange men entering the valley, and a final entry: if anything happens, the truth is in the mine. Zoe's blood ran cold. He went in there. He thought he found something dangerous. Clive's jaw tightened. Then that's where we're going. Zoe hesitated. Even if those men are still out there, especially if they are, Clive said. They won't stop, and neither will I. For a moment, the fear inside Zoe collided with something else, growing trust in the man standing before her. The man who chose to help her when he had no reason to. Zoe clutched the lantern she'd found. You ever been inside? Once, Clive admitted. Wasn't eager to return. They stepped into the darkness. The lantern's glow revealed long abandoned tracks and silent stone walls. But further in, Zoe spotted footprints, fresh ones. They're here, she whispered. Clive nodded grimly. And if they're here, Mason might be too. A distant cry echoed through the tunnels. Zoe froze. That was him. Zoe's heart leaped at the faint cry echoing through the mine. She rushed forward, but Clive grabbed her arm. Steady but gentle. Slow down, he warned. These tunnels are unstable. I heard him, Clive, she insisted. He's alive. I know, he said. But if we trigger a collapse, neither of you will make it out. His voice pulled her back to reason, and they continued carefully, stepping around fallen beams. The deeper they went, the colder it became. Their breaths formed wisps in the lantern light. A voice drifted through the darkness, low, angry, murmuring. Clive motioned for silence. They crept closer until the tunnel widened into a chamber lit by stolen lanterns. 3 rough-looking men stood guard around a bound figure. Mason, Zoe breathed. Her brother sat slumped against a pile of crates, wrists tied, face bruised, but alive. He looked up as the men argued over a map. They found the mother lode, one snarled. All we gotta do is. Clive stepped into the lantern light. Rifle raised, drop it. The men whipped around. Barrett, one spat. Knew you'd stick your nose in this. Let him go, Clive ordered. Zoe stayed behind him, heart pounding, eyes fixed on Mason. The leader smirked. Why should we? This fool found our gold stash. Now he's gonna help us dig it out. He's not a miner, Zoe snapped. He's a journalist. Same difference when he's pokin' where he shouldn't. The men reached for their weapons, but Clive was faster. He fired a warning shot that ricocheted off the cave wall, showering them with dust. Next one won't miss, he growled. A tense standoff settled over the cavern. The lantern flames flickered with each breath of cold air. Finally, the leader lifted his hands. Fine, take the girl's brother. We'll find another way. But as Clive stepped toward Mason, the man lunged. Clive! Zoe screamed. Clive dodged his rifle, clattering to the ground. The 2 men collided, fists flying. Zoe grabbed a fallen lantern and swung it, knocking one attacker backward. Clive overpowered the leader, pinning him. Zoe, get Mason. She rushed to her brother, cutting his bindings. Mason, can you stand? Barely, he rasped. But I'll try. Clive fought off the last attacker and hurried to Zoe. We have to move. The gunfires weakened the supports. As they helped Mason toward the exit, the ground rumbled ominously. The mine's coming down, Clive shouted. The tunnel walls trembled as Zoe, Clive, and Mason stumbled toward the entrance. Wood beams groaned above them, dust raining down like a storm of ash. Faster, Clive urged, supporting Mason's weight. Zoe held the lantern high, lighting their path. Every tremor felt like the entire mountain was about to swallow them whole. A beam cracked overhead. Clive tackled Zoe and Mason out of the way just as it crashed to the ground. Zoe's heart thundered. Clive, you could have been crushed. He gave a crooked grin. Wouldn't be the first time somebody tried. They pushed forward, lungs burning, until a burst of daylight appeared ahead. With one final surge, they spilled out of the mine entrance, just as the tunnel collapsed behind them in a roar of falling stone. For a long moment, all three lay on the ground, gasping, covered in dust. Mason coughed. "Guess I owe you both my life." "Yeah," Clive said. "Let's make it the last time." Zoe turned to Clive. "You stayed. You fought for us. Why?" He hesitated, brushing dust from his hat. "Because when you rode into Echo Valley, it didn't feel empty anymore." Warmth spread through Zoe's chest. "You don't have to stay here alone, you know." Clive looked out at the ghost town, the abandoned saloon, the broken windows, the silent streets. "Place grows on you," he said softly. "But maybe, so does company." Mason sat up with a wince. "If you two are done making eyes at each other, can we get out of here?" Zoe laughed an exhausted, joyful sound she hadn't felt in weeks. She helped her brother onto his horse, as Clive saddled his own. As they rode out of Echo Valley together, Zoe glanced back. The ghost town still stood in silence, but it no longer felt lonely. Clive rode beside her. "So, Zoe Harper," he drawled. "What comes next?" "Whatever keeps us out of collapsing mines," she teased. He chuckled. "I think we'll get along just fine." And somewhere between the ruins and the open trail beyond, Zoe realized she'd found more than her missing brother. She'd found someone brave enough to stand with her in the shadows and strong enough to walk with her into the light. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more Western stories.